Welcome to the Midweek message. We're taking some lessons from the book of Ecclesiastes, and I'm reading from chapter 12, verses 4 through 5. Today I'm reading from the New Living Translation of the Bible. In Ecclesiastes 12, Solomon is encouraging his readers to remember their Creator, to remember God, to commit their ways to Him while they are young before the ravages of age come upon them. And in verses 1 through 3, he has given great descriptive detail to what happens as people age, and much of the joy of life fades. And so in verses 4 and 5, he picks up with descriptors of the aging process. Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 4, speaking of age, says, "When the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, when people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint, when people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along and desire no longer is stirred, then people go to their eternal home and mourners go about the streets." And we're going to look at these verses individually. Remember your Creator when you are young, before the ravages of age come upon you, when the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, when people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. The doors to the street are closed when people age. Now, some would say that this refers to the lips, the mouth, because the verses that follow, the phrase that follows has to do with the teeth in the mouth. When the mouth is closed, not as much goes in or comes out eating-wise, not as much is said. That can be a mark of age. At the same time, some others say it has to do with the shutting off from society, when people don't go out as much, when they're not as active. As people age, they have less in common with society in general. That is always changing, and certainly less in common with younger generations. So remember your Creator before the doors to the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades. In other words, some of the teeth are gone, and the chewing is not as noisome and as active, and it's more subdued. When people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. I've noticed it as I have aged. I don't sleep quite as well. It doesn't take as much to wake me up. When I was young, I could sleep through almost any kind of racket. But as a person ages, what happens? They don't sleep as well. The sound of a bird wakes them up, but yet even that is faint. In other words, they don't sleep as well, and small noises stir them, and yet at the same time they're losing their hearing. When people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets, when the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along and desire no longer is stirred, then people go to their eternal home and mourners go about the streets. Those are the words of verse 5. What happens when people age? Fears are more likely to beset them. They're not quite as brave. Some of this comes as a result of wisdom and experience and understanding what dangers are, but people weaken in their facility, and they're more cautious because they're more easily injured. They're afraid of heights, of dangers in the streets, getting mugged. They're more thoughtful, for one thing, and yet, on the other hand, they are at a greater risk of being victimized. When the almond tree blossoms, maybe the hair goes gray or white, and the grasshopper drags itself along. The vitality of life is gone. Time just seems to drag, and desire no longer is stirred. Now, we could apply this in a lot of ways. It could be speaking in general of the vitality of life. It could be talking about sexual desire. As people age, though, they may reach a place where they don't enjoy much of anything. What is happening? Desire no longer is stirred. Remember God while you've still got life left, before you lose the joy of living and things change for you physically, emotionally, and mentally, the next step, then people go to their eternal home. People leave this life for eternity, wherever that may be. And mourners go about in the streets. In other words, their memory remains valid and vital and known, at least for a while, but it's in the past, and others mourn their passing.